Hi, my name is Claudia Morales. I'm one of the producers from Concerts from the Library of Congress, and I would like to welcome you to our 96th season. And please follow us because our season has just started. Today, I'm so happy to welcome to our digital stage the Mexican percussion ensemble Tambuco. Tambuco has a robust musical tradition of 27 years, traveling around the world and working with different composers. They have 10 recorded albums, 4 Grammy nominees, one that includes Best Classical Album, Best Classical Latino Album, and also Best Album of Chamber Music. So please welcome to our digital stage Ricardo Gallardo, the artistic director, Alfredo Bringas, Raúl Tudón, and Miguel González. Welcome, Tambuco.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Ricardo, we're going to dive in right into the program. I know that you have prepared a wonderful selection of multiple pieces, including composers from Latin America, from Mexico, Uruguay, Colombia, and also Spain. Can you please tell us a little bit about your creative process to select these pieces for this program?
Yes, Claudia. With Tambuco, we always try to show in a concert not only great music, but also music that defines who we are. And Tambuco has a very clear objectives and goals, and one of them is to show compositions which are the result of close collaborations with composers. We work with them constantly in pieces, and the final goal is the premiere and constant performances of these pieces. These composers, particularly from Latin America, or I might say Ibero-America, they have created a vast repertoire of pieces for Tambuco. So for us, it's very important to show these works as a result of close collaboration. We decided to offer a program that shows this collaboration, particularly with the composers of diverse countries that have worked with us, and composers that practically all the program is integrated with pieces written specially for us. So we'd like to show this repertoire as result of this collaboration. So we are very happy to offer this in the Library of Congress.
That's wonderful, Ricardo, because through your composition, we are able to see and learn about the different composers from all these wonderful countries. So thank you for this wonderful program. Raúl, I know that one of your compositions is included in the program, Soundscape 1. This piece is part of a larger work. Can you tell us about the creative process behind this piece?
Yeah, sure. When I compose, I try to not compose one piece. A thing that I have for a long time. And this soundscape is a part of a series of pieces that I wrote between 2001 and 2000, maybe 7. It took me a lot of time and effort to compose this series of pieces that I call numbers, magical structures. And I thought about use the from 1 to 9 and make different pieces using these numbers. The number 1 was pulsar. The number 2 was soundscapes. There are 2 soundscapes. Number 3 is 3 gardens, 3 pieces called gardens. Number 4 is dreams. Number 5 is rhythmic structures of the wind. That one of them is played by Tambuco regularly in our seasons. Number 6 is gates. Number 7 is 7 dances to confront the dead. And number 8 is 8 mountains. And number 9 is 9 trees. This soundscape 1 is based on a piece that I wrote for marimba that is included in the 8 trees. in this same series. I used to play solo in marimba, all these ideas that form the piece. And later I made a version with electronics that I play in synthesizers. And some years ago, we have the opportunity to play a concert in a very special place that I think Soundscape, it was very good for Tambuco to play on this place. And I wrote a version for Tambuco. That is the version that we are going to play in this concert. And I developed the ideas. The idea is using a small phrase, very calm, and develop a series of rhythmics, and then use improvise to develop the more idea. And that's where it comes from, Soundscape.
Thank you. Ricardo, the piece Metro Chavacano, which was originally written for strings, and it was a commission for the Latin American quartet. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of this piece? I know it's a piece that is very important for Mexico, and it was written at a very important time in the history. Can you tell us about the piece and how you and Tambuco became interested in this piece for percussion?
Sure. I have to speak a little bit about the birth of this piece. And for that, I have to go back. We have to move back in time to the year 1985, when Mexico City suffered a big earthquake that sadly damaged many buildings in the city. And one of these places was a subway station. The subway station in Mexico is called Metro, like in France, like in Paris, and it's actually inspired in the subway of this European city. The station was called Metro Chavacano, and it had to be renovated, not only because of the damage of the earthquake, but also because there was a plan to make this station as a transfer station with a new line that was crossing. So it was going to be a transfer station. So they built a brand new station, and for the opening of this station, two pieces of art were commissioned. One was a sculpture by artist Marcos Limenes, and the other was the commission for the music that was going to be played alongside the sculpture. That's how Metro Chavacano was commissioned originally for string quartet, and was, as you said, premiered by our good friends and colleagues, Cuarteto Latinoamericano. We decided to embark of the project of playing this piece, first because of the beauty of this piece. It's a beautiful piece of music, and second because it's written in such a way that its rhythmic nature and percussive nature are very evident. So when I was listening, I thought this could sound great in a marimba quartet. A marimba quartet has practically the same range, the same register as a string quartet. The lowest note of the cello is the lowest note in the marimba. So we can we could play this music with no problem. We didn't suffer transcribing it because we could almost read it from the original parts for the strings, except with some adaptations to our instruments in few cases. But the music worked perfectly. I remember recording this piece and showing it to Javier Alvarez, the composer, and he said he loved the Tambuco version of Metro Chavacano, and he said, well, from now on, I cannot listen Metro Chavacano without thinking in the version that you just played. I love it. And I remember that when I showed this to him, Javier's son Tobias was around, and he was around 5 or 6 years old. And kids at that age have no filter. They tell you this, how they are. And he says, yes, this version is much better than the string version. So that's the story of Metro Chavacano. The music describes, the music is like a moto perpetuo, very rhythmic and very percussive. And it describes like trains coming and going for along all the subway system of Mexico City, which is incredible because it brings and takes more than 8 million people, 9 million people a day. So the music describes this non-stopping movement of people back and forth. It's like a moto perpetuo.
That's so interesting, and I love always to hear the background story about the pieces and how they come to be, what we know about them now. Raúl, going back to your piece, I know that your piece was composed when you first had not your first encounter, but you were interested in yoga. How do you will describe this relationship between your yoga practice and this composition?
Yes, yoga became a very important part of my life in that moment, and I found moments of peace that changed my way of thinking in music and write music in that moment. And Soundscape was very influence in that process. So I try to make a piece that reflects a state of conscience, a state of peace that yoga is giving me. So I tried to write a piece that was like a meditation. Begins with very calm breathe, very calm sounds, and then go into a special state of conscience, a very a state of different point of view on life. So the piece develops that idea of going to something better, something different, and then became going to the piece again. So that was the idea to compose the soundscapes 1 and 2.
Miguel, going back to what Raul described and also what Ricardo described about those pieces, I know that Tambuco really enjoys when they have the opportunity to work with the composers and being able to give them the percussionist perspective to the music making. Can you tell us a little bit about that process, even though some of those pieces that might not be included in this program?
Of course, the collaboration with composers has been a central part of Tambuco's career development. From the beginning of Tambuco, we have always been looking for working alongside with composers in new pieces. There are more than 100 pieces that have been written for Tambuco in all these years, and this has been so important in the way that Tambuco has found his own voice, his own musical voice, because of this, because it's not only to be a good performer or a good musician or to play the music in a right way, but what kind of music and what combination of music and what origin from this music. So we have been very selective, and I think this has been a huge part of Tambuco's success over the years, because as you can see in this program that we will present on October the 30th, we have mainly pieces from composers from Latin America. Most of these pieces have been written especially for Tambuco, and but each one of those pieces is very, very different from the other. They're so contrasting that it's almost hard to believe that it's the same people doing all these different things, because we use very different instruments, very different styles. Some pieces are fast, other are very slow, some are very they take you, each piece take you to very different places, emotionally speaking. So this is a small part, but if you make it big, this is what we have done over these years. So yeah, so working with the composers, it's been a privilege that if you were playing Beethoven or Mozart or all these great composers, you couldn't have that opportunity because they're dead. So working with living composers, it's been a great privilege, and has worked really well for us over these years. And the deepness and the intimacy that you get in music by this process, it's very interesting. We have reached different degrees of closeness with different composers. With some of them, we just talk very small details because the work is almost finished, and just small details to change in music. But with other composers, we have worked in a very different way, almost in a co-creation process. They had just like a very vague idea, just like a story from the piece, and from that we have all created a new piece of music. Or like in Raúl's music, that he gives us a lot of freedom to also to participate in different ways, to improvise and to bring new ideas to his music, and he's always very open to this type of ideas.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I always like to hear musicians' experience about working with living composers, as you just said. Ricardo, can you tell us that moment when you worked this piece, La Partita para Timbales, for timbales, from Carlos Chavez? Speaking of the difference between being able to massage a piece with a living composer and working this other piece from a dead composer. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yes, this triggers a thought that I've had about this when approaching contemporary music. There is, of course, sometimes it's very common to find resistance in accepting new languages, new music. uh, especially with audiences that tend to be conservative around their choices and their tastes in classical music. Um, New music has always existed. New music uh, and the constant premiere of new pieces was a much more common practice in past centuries than now. Uh, Actually, in the times of Mozart, for instance, or in the Baroque, people listened all the time recent creations. There was not this tendency or to perform or to program pieces that were proven successfully in terms of the box office, for instance. You know, people were always eager to listen the new pieces of the young boy called Mozart, you know, or his contemporaries. Um, it the programming of pieces that have proven success is a more recent practice. So for me, I always say that I would like to continue that tradition. Who wouldn't have loved to be one of the musicians premiering one of Brahms' trios or sing in the choir that premiered Beethoven's Ninth Symphony? That would have been fantastic to be
Right.
there, to make that exercise of imagination and think what how important would have been to experience that. Well, we couldn't do it then, but we can do it now. So it's for us, it's a great adventure and a great opportunity to work with living composers, to learn how they think, to think as composers, not only as performers, but to share with them the creation of a new piece that, who knows, maybe in the future could become a classic, you know. We don't know that. We It's our duty to perform that uh, as best as we can, so that people have a great impression and really close impression of what the composer would like to express. So, in the case of the partita for timpani, it is a piece that is in both sides. I didn't have the chance to work with Carlos Chavez, and it was one of his last pieces. And because of its difficulty, and because of many technical obstacles, it's a piece that I'm sure he didn't listen while he was living. And also, it was his second last piece. Um, the last piece was his trombone concerto, but before that, he wrote the partita. And it would have been fantastic to exchange experiences and ideas with him. So when I learned the piece, I tried to make also an exercise of imagination, and I imagined that I was playing for him, and I tried to figure what would I suggest and what would I recommend or what would I think about the piece should he was living, you know. That's and that's how I advanced in towards this project of learning this piece. So I said, well, I will write down my suggestions, which are actually suggestions to myself, and I will try to imagine what he would say to me, based on the experience that I've had working with many, many composers. So, and I did my own versions. There were some passages in the piece that were impossible to play, just physically impossible. And so I made decisions from the point of view of a performer who tries to imagine what he would have liked to express. So I think that there's a lot of responsibility to do that, because in order to do that, you have to dive into his musical language, which in Chavez is difficult because he had many musical languages. He went back from one style of music to other, and he was constantly trying new types of languages. So I try to do that. In the case of the partita is inspired in these musical forms. The partita is a body of small Baroque dances. Aleman, Saraband, Jig, Gavotte, all of those are dance forms, that they have a rhythmic structure. So I tried to understand these structures, listening a lot to of Baroque suites and Baroque partitas, and then trying to apply this way of playing in such a strange instrument to play this music, a set of timpanis. So it was quite an adventure to do that.
I bet it was. I bet it was, definitely.
Yes.
And I know, Ricardo, this piece, correct me if I'm wrong, this piece was part of the project when Tambuco started working with Southwest Chamber Music in 2015, and when you were nominated 3 times for this project. Can you tell us about how Tambuco became close and started a connection with Southwest Chamber Music, how this project became?
Yes. Yes, to answer this, I always have to go back in time, as you say, because I did that in the previous question. Uh, Tambuco started in 1993, but before that, we knew each other for many years and we played together for many years as students of percussion in the University of Mexico. When we were very, very young, I mean, we are still very, very young, but before
Of
that,
course.
we were just almost children. We played in the percussion ensemble of the University of Mexico. And we got involved in many projects with many composers. So we learned to play professionally from a very early age. And I remember that in one new music festival in Mexico City, uh, one of the guest composers was William Kraft. William Kraft is a big name in the development of uh, music for percussion, and he was a percussionist himself. He was the principal timpanist of Los Angeles Philharmonic in the time of Zubin Mehta, and later he became a composer. But his presence in the history of percussion was very important because he premiered Tambuco by Carlos Chavez and became a friend of Carlos Chavez. Uh, so we met him, and there was a very quick connection with him, and he became a very important figure in the development, in the further development of us as members of Tambuco, uh, becoming practically one of our main mentors. And so he saw how we evolved as musicians, and he saw our involvement with the music of Carlos Chavez, and because it was very important for the percussion repertoire. And on the other hand, Bill Kraft knew the directors of Southwest Chamber Music because they are both from Los Angeles. And he knew about their project to record the complete chamber music of Carlos Chavez. And he went to them, Bill Kraft went to them and said, when you record the percussion music of Carlos Chavez, you must do it with Tambuco, because they are the specialists. They know this music inside out, and they have and play the um, traditional pre-Hispanic instruments that many times Carlos Chavez calls for in many of his scores. So that's how we got involved with them in a great collaboration that has lasted until present day. That's the story.
That's very interesting. You know that the Library of Congress, the music division, has a very interesting collection of letters from Carlos Chavez to Aaron Copland. And in another moment, we would love to show those letters to you. But we're going to put those letters in this video later. They are digitized now, so we can show that to the audience so they can see them at least from this video. But that's a fascinating story. And moving on to the program, Alfredo, this program has also two Colombian pieces, one from Leopoldo Novoa, Sabe Como Es, and another one from Claudia Calderon, Christmas. And Leopoldo Novoa's piece has a very interesting instrument, the guacharaca. Can you tell us a little bit about this instrument and how this instrument is played in this piece?
Thank you. Yes, the guacharaca is built with a wood in a kind of bamboo, but thinner and very, very hard. Ricardo is showing now this guacharaca, and is very hard, and the builder take off the central part, which is very soft, and then put a line of incisions so that with a scraper, a metal scraper, you can scrape and play different rhythms and many things like is he's showing. Normally in this music of Colombia, they play with this kind of scraper, but Leopoldo add to for this piece add a piece of wood, a stick in the other side, so that you can play with wood or with metal. Ricardo will show us a little bit. Metal.
And then wood.
Exactly, and depending on the way you scrape the guacharaca, you can get different notes, higher or low, as he will show us this melody. So you can play any melody that you want with this marvelous instrument.
Can you show us perhaps the marimbola and tell us a little bit about that instrument?
Sure. The marimbola is a idiophone. I have one here so that you can see it. And it has some keys. This is a box, simple box of wood, and then you play pulsing. As long as the tongue, as low is it, and as short it will be high. So Leopoldo uses this instrument to the central part of the piece and make a very special solo, very interesting and difficult. You need very strong fingers to play this instrument. So it's very interesting what he does with the instrument in this piece, Sabe Como Es.
And Prismas from Claudia Calderon. For that instrument, you use the marimba de chonta.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that instrument?
Yeah, in the music of the Pacific coast of Colombia, they use a xylophone, kind of xylophone, a marimba, which is built with a tree called chonta. So with this tree is a very, very hard wood, and they make very special rituals and ceremony to cut the tree and to make the instrument.
I really enjoy learning about these instruments that you bring to life in these compositions. Usually when people think about percussion, we think about big drums, big instruments, but we don't really take into consideration the small percussion instruments that also bring so much color and texture and to our pieces. And in this particular ones, the one that you're bringing, this instrument from Latin America that not that many people know about. So that's very interesting. And along those lines, Ricardo, can you tell us about, I know that Tambuco, as William Kraft said, has a wide variety of pre-Hispanic percussion instruments. Can you tell us about a little bit about, I know you have a huge collection and we don't have that much time to talk about each one of them, but can you talk about a few of them and especially about the marimba chapaneca?
Okay, yes, we have to make a division here, though. One is the great heritage of many percussion and wind instruments, drums, flutes, whistles, ocarinas, that were found in archaeological excavations in Mexico. And the other is the marimba coming from Chiapas. The marimba in Chiapas is a southern state of Mexico, borders with Guatemala. They have a huge tradition of music being played in and composed for marimba. For them is a matter of national pride, so to speak. And the marimba in Chiapas is quite different to the concert marimba that we used to play. They have strong differences in construction, in the materials used. For instance, all the resonators, the tubes that are displayed underneath the keys, they are made out of wood, and this wood also has a little hole where a little membrane is put. This membrane is made with pork intestine, but this is a heritage from Africa, that they do the same in their instruments, their marimbas, their balafon, and this has a buzzing sound when you play the instrument, so it sounds bzz, 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 like that, and that's a heritage of African origin. In Tambuco, we play not much traditional marimba from Chiapas, but we acknowledge a lot the influence that has had. And Chiapas, the state of Chiapas, is the cradle of many amazing players that, as they say, they have breakfast with marimba, lunch with marimba, dinner with marimba. It's marimba land, or I call it marimba la land. So it's a great heritage shared also with Guatemala. For them, the marimba is their national instrument, but also all the region that in Mexico reaches also the states of Oaxaca and Veracruz a little bit, and then further down into Central America and reaches Ecuador and Colombia. They have the traditional marimba spread in that region in the same way in which marimbula, the instrument that Alfredo showed, spread in the Caribbean region. So it's important for Tambuco. It's very important to treat all these instruments with respect. We are not traditional performers or performers of traditional music. We don't say that we play this, but we acquire these instruments and we give ancient instruments new voices. That's I think that's the most respectful thing that we can do with the instruments. We cannot pretend to be traditional performers. We are not. We are musicians that were trained in a conservatory with concert music traditions, but very, very interested in exploring the expressive capabilities of these instruments to speak, applying new techniques as we describe with this scraper, and use them to explore new techniques and extend these traditional techniques to do something with them. I think that's one of the main things that we do with these instruments.
That's great. I love that. I love how you say that you, even though you're not saying that you are a traditional musician who play this instrument, but you want to acknowledge them and pay respect and bring them to your repertoire in the most respectful way. And I think that's incredible. And that also brings so much to the audience about these instruments, and maybe inspire them to learn more about this instrument, where they're coming from, and what is the history, even though they are not the central piece of this music. So, but
Yes,
that's great.
we must understand something that happens to percussionists, and it's certainly something that doesn't happen to other instrumentalists. Take, for instance, a violin player, which develops his career. He goes to learn and have his first or her first violin lessons, and learning progressively with studies. Then they start playing little sonatas or pieces of lesser difficulty, and they go perhaps a Mozart violin concerto, and then develop into more difficult and complex pieces. And parallel in parallel, try to imagine a fiddle player that could be a gypsy fiddle player, or from Nashville, Tennessee, playing bluegrass, or Celtic, Irish player, or Huapango player in Mexico. And these two musicians and these two instruments and the two techniques never cross, never cross. They live parallel lives, but never cross. You never see classical violinists learning the other techniques. Nowadays, you see a little bit more. But same with clarinets, we have many different kinds of clarinets or instruments with reeds in many musical traditions, but musicians from the concert context never go to the other side. In percussion, it happens totally the contrary. You go all the time, you play instruments which are alive in ethnic or traditional contexts. And there are no methods for this, to learn these instruments. And these instruments are very frequently called in contemporary concert pieces. So we need to play them, and we need to play them again with the respect they deserve. And in order to play, you have to go to the source. You have to go, and as Alfredo said previously, the best way to learn is being there. Playing is an oral tradition, so you have to learn as you play. And this happens a lot to us as percussionists. And I think that this exercise of doing this enriches us a lot as musicians, because it opens our panoramas of music. It makes us more open musicians and makes us learn about different cultures and the context in which these instruments exist. So we benefit from that.
That's great. Thank you so much. I love learning all that. That's fantastic. Speaking about the instruments, and you say the learning about the instrument, we know that for percussionists and musicians in general, but in this case for percussionists precisely, I know it's very important that relationship between the instrument and also the maker of the instrument. Alfredo, can you tell us a little bit about those times when you spend a lot of time, you Tambuco spend a lot of time in San Miguel de Allende with these music makers, Frank Gerner and Euclid Moore, those sessions that you had back in the time with Tambuco?
Yes, our friends from Amani Drums, they are from the United States, and they live in San Miguel, and they are great artists of a special technique to build art objects, which are made with small and thin pieces of wood ensembled as in many parts, so that they build these many objects beautiful in different colors. And then once they decided to make drums in different sizes and different shapes, so that they started making a great success. And then we met them, and then they invited us to San Miguel to know his workshop and to know the drums that they had made. So we went to San Miguel, and we know the place and all the drums. We get in love with all this stuff, beautiful. All they sound great. So the night became, and then we decided to go to make a fire in the country, and then some meat and some wine and drums. So we spent many days, and many nights playing the drums and eating and drinking good wine. So that happens many times, and and then we are really good friends with them, and we always have many instruments from them, and they are still building the instruments. So that was a really good experience.
I see that through all the background stories that you share with us in this conversation, that Tambuco has a very strong connection, a very strong relationship among the players. And can you tell us what is the secret for 27 years in this project? There has to be something there that got you guys together from the first time and going for 27 years. If each one of you can tell me briefly something that you think might be the special secret for this recipe.
Yes, well, I think there are not secret. Just there are. We are very good friends. We started being friends from when we were students in the university in the UNAM, and from there until now we are friends. And when we rehearse, we met to enjoy the music, to be fun, and to make music. We have sometimes problems or conflicts in the rehearsals, but after the rehearsal, we just go to eat, and no problem. So I think that's one of the things that we know exactly what we want as a group, and we enjoyed it, and we go to make it fun for us and for fun for the people who is going to listen our music.
Yes, I think, as Alfredo says, the friendship is one of the most important things that bonds the project, because we can have different opinions, different points of view, but at the end, the friendship is one of the important things of the. We know each other from all of life, a complete life, and the other important element is that idea of Tambuco goes. We are going to the same direction. We are going. We are always bringing our life, our knowledge to Tambuco to go to the same direction, and I think this is very important in a group.
Yes, I think besides what my colleagues, my friends have said, I think one of the main reasons that Tambuco is still together and with good health after all these years is that we are always learning. We are always trying to find new things, new music, trying to work with different composers and different also artists and musicians. We have collaborated with lots of different musicians and artists as dancers, painters, etc., sculptors from different parts of the world, and that keeps our group alive and with a lot of interest in it, a lot of fun, always learning new things or new way to do the same things. So that keeps the day by day interesting, and music is infinite, and you never stop learning, and you can go deeper every time, and there's no end to it. That's why you can, as a musician, you can be 85 or really old, and the great musicians, they never stop working, really. I mean, like composers or performers, they keep playing until very old age, because you never stop learning. You always find new ways and deeper ways to do music. So that's one thing that I think that keeps Tambuco together. And of course, we are good friends, and we make a lot of jokes, and that also makes the work fun for us.
I think that we discover from the very beginning of Tambuco that we were in front of a very good opportunity to develop our careers as musicians in a unique way. Not only playing and performing the pieces that were results of a close collaboration with composers, but Tambuco became little by little a very strong platform, a common place in which we could bring our own interests, and we discover the possibility that this project gave us to really flourish, not only as musicians but also as human beings. Tambuco has given us this fantastic opportunity to be healthy musicians in the whole sense of the word, you know. We have been able to flourish in that way, and take the Tambuco experience not only as the experience of an ensemble that gets together, rehearses, and premieres pieces. I think that what we want to show is the result of four people working together towards a common goal. And I think that that example for me is very important to show people what four human beings can do together when they are concentrated in the same goal. Tambuco is an opportunity to grow in that way, especially in times. I think that music is especially important in times like now, where we live surrounded by a reality in which the presence of fear, the presence of a prejudice against race, the prejudice against wealth or lack of it, or the definition of wealth, the difference between cultures, between countries, tends to be enhanced, and we tend to be apart from the others that are different in some ways. Even starts even in neighbors of houses, neighbors of regions, neighbors of countries. And so the practice of music, I think that gives us enormous lessons to many answers to the world. The world needs harmony, same as music, you know. We need to start thinking different, and I think that we are before a reality that is reminding us that. And I think that Tambuco for us is this platform, is this cozy home where we can feel really like that. We can feel at home, and we have discovered how it, for each one of the four of us, has been an opportunity to grow professionally, and to grow spiritually, and to grow in a human way.
Ricardo, Alfredo, Raúl, Miguel, thank you so much for being here with us, for creating this wonderful program, for this conversation. I cannot thank you enough I can spend so much time talking to you. You guys are just fun. There's so much to talk about, so much to learn. And I just want to thank you. I would like to invite everyone to watch the concert. It's going to be fantastic. And continue following us in this 96th season that has just started. Again, Ricardo, Alfredo, Raúl, Miguel, thank you. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Claudia.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.